My name is Dorothy Hayes, and I'm 72 years old now. What I'm about to tell you happened 15 years ago, but I remember every detail as if it were yesterday. Some moments in life brand themselves into your memory, and this is one of them. I was married to Robert Hayes for 35 years. We built a life together in a modest house on Maple Street, raised two beautiful children, and shared dreams that seemed unbreakable. Robert worked as an accountant, steady and reliable, or so I thought. My best friend was Catherine Miller. We'd known each other since college, shared secrets, celebrated birthdays, and held each other through losses. She was the sister I never had. When my mother passed away, Catherine sat with me every single night for a week. When her son graduated from medical school, I cried tears of joy right alongside her. That's why what happened next cut so deeply. It started with small things I didn't want to see. Robert coming home later than usual. New cologne I didn't recognize. A distance in his eyes when he looked at me, as if he were somewhere else entirely. Then came the phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room. I told myself I was imagining things. After 35 years of marriage, surely we were beyond such betrayals. But a woman knows. Deep in her bones, she knows when something precious is slipping away. One afternoon in September, I decided to surprise Robert at his office with lunch. He'd been working so hard lately, or at least that's what he told me. When I arrived, his secretary looked uncomfortable, averting her eyes. "He's not here, Mrs. Hayes," she said quietly. "He left an hour ago." Something in her voice made me press further. "Do you know where he went?" She hesitated, then whispered, "The Riverside Motel." "I'm sorry." My hands trembled as I drove across town. Part of me wanted to turn around, to preserve the illusion of my marriage a little longer. But I needed to know the truth. The parking lot of the Riverside Motel was nearly empty. Robert's blue sedan sat in front of room 14. Next to it was Catherine's white Toyota. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, unable to move. My heart felt like it was being crushed in a vice. When I finally found the strength to knock on that door, my entire world shattered. Robert opened it wearing only a hotel bathrobe. Behind him, I could see Catherine sitting on the bed, wrapped in sheets, her face pale with shock. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Not yet. I simply looked at them both and said, "How long?" "Dorothy, please," Robert began, but I held up my hand. Catherine found her voice. 2 years, she whispered. 2 years, 730 days of lies, of stolen moments while I trusted them both completely. I walked away that afternoon and filed for divorce the next morning. Robert didn't contest it. He knew what he'd done, but the pain of losing him was nothing compared to the agony of Catherine's betrayal. She called me dozens of times, sent letters begging for forgiveness. I burned every one without reading them. 3 months later, I received news that changed everything. I'd been feeling tired, more exhausted than usual. My doctor ran tests and delivered the diagnosis that stops time. Stage 4 ovarian cancer. Aggressive. Advanced. The prognosis was grim. "We can try treatment," Dr. Patterson said gently, "but I need you to understand the reality of your situation." I understood perfectly. I was dying. I didn't tell many people. My children knew, of course, and they surrounded me with love. But I didn't want pity or tears. I wanted to spend whatever time I had left with dignity. Robert found out somehow. Perhaps one of our mutual friends told him. He showed up at my door one evening, his eyes red from crying. "Dorothy, I'm so sorry," he said. "About everything. About the affair, about Catherine, about not being the husband you deserved." I looked at him standing on my porch, this man I'd spent most of my life with, and felt nothing. The cancer had given me an unexpected gift. Clarity. The past no longer mattered. Only truth did. "Thank you for saying that, Robert," I told him. "But I need you to leave now." He nodded and turned to go, then paused. "Catherine wants to see you. She's devastated about your illness." I closed the door without answering. The chemotherapy was brutal. I lost my hair, my appetite, my strength. But I refused to lose my spirit. My daughter, Patricia, moved in with me to help. My son, Marcus, visited every weekend from 2 states away, As months passed, I grew weaker. The doctors eventually recommended hospice care. The cancer had spread too far, too fast. There was nothing more they could do. I made peace with dying. I'd lived a good life, loved deeply, and raised wonderful children. If this was my time, I would face it with grace. But then something unexpected happened. 6 months into my diagnosis, I woke up one morning feeling different. Not better exactly, but different. The overwhelming fatigue had lifted slightly. I could take a full breath without pain. Dr. Patterson ordered new scans, his expression carefully neutral. When the results came back, he sat down across from me with tears in his eyes. "I don't know how to explain this, Dorothy," he said. "The tumors are shrinking significantly." It was impossible, he said. Miraculous. Even stage 4 cancer doesn't just retreat on its own. But mine did. Month after month, the scans showed improvement. The cancer that should have killed me was slowly, inexplicably disappearing. A year after my diagnosis, I was declared in remission. During that year of fighting for my life, something else happened. Robert and Catherine had gotten married. A small, quiet ceremony, I heard. They moved into a house across town and tried to build a life together on the ruins of our friendships and marriage. But guilt is a powerful poison. Catherine couldn't look at herself in the mirror without seeing the woman who betrayed her best friend. Every happy moment with Robert was tainted by the memory of how their relationship began. She became withdrawn, depressed. She started therapy but couldn't forgive herself. Robert fared no better. He'd lost his children's respect, his reputation in the community, and the woman who'd stood by him for 35 years. His new marriage, built on lies and betrayal, brought him no joy. I learned all of this not from them, but from mutual acquaintances who felt compelled to update me. I listened politely but felt detached from their drama. I'd been to death's door and back. Their problems seemed very small from where I stood. Then came the wedding invitation that changed everything. My son Marcus was getting married to a wonderful woman named Jennifer. The wedding would be held at the Lakeside Manor, a beautiful venue, with gardens overlooking the water. It would be a celebration of love and new beginnings. Marcus asked me a difficult question. "Mom, Dad wants to come, and he'll probably bring Catherine. Is that okay with you?" I thought about it carefully. This was Marcus's, not mine. My past shouldn't cast shadows on his future. "Of course he should come," I said. "This is your wedding, sweetheart. I want you to have everyone you love there." What I didn't tell anyone was my plan. Everyone believed I died. When the cancer went into remission, I'd made a deliberate choice. I asked Dr. Patterson to report to the hospice that I'd passed away peacefully in my sleep. I asked Patricia and Marcus to spread the word that their mother had lost her battle with cancer. They thought I was crazy at first, but I explained my reasoning. I needed a clean break from my old life. I needed to disappear for a while, to heal not just physically, but emotionally, to figure out who Dorothy Hayes was without the weight of betrayal and illness defining her. They agreed, reluctantly. It helped that I was planning to move to Arizona to live with my sister Ruth for a while. A fresh start in a new place. The obituary ran in the local paper. Friends sent condolences. And yes, Robert and Catherine held a funeral. From what I learned later, Robert insisted on a proper burial. They purchased a plot, held a memorial service, and lowered an empty coffin into the ground. Catherine sobbed throughout the entire ceremony, overcome with guilt and grief. Robert gave a eulogy about regret and lost chances. They buried an empty box while I sat in Arizona, drinking coffee on Ruth's porch and watching the sunrise. 18 months later, I felt strong enough to return. For Marcus's wedding, I looked different now. My hair had grown back silver instead of black, and I'd gained weight, filling out the hollow places cancer had carved in my frame. I felt healthy. I felt reborn. I arrived at the Lakeside Manor early, before most of the guests. Patricia and Marcus were the only ones who knew I'd be there. We'd planned this moment carefully. The wedding was beautiful. Jennifer looked radiant in her white gown, and Marcus couldn't stop smiling. I sat in the back row, watching my son commit his life to the woman he loved, and felt grateful to be alive to witness it. Then Robert and Catherine arrived. They walked in together, both looking older and more worn than I remembered. Catherine's vibrancy had dimmed. Robert's shoulders were slumped with the weight of guilt he carried. They took seats near the front, unaware that the woman they'd betrayed and buried sat just 20 feet behind them. The ceremony was perfect. Marcus and Jennifer exchanged vows that spoke of honesty, loyalty, and enduring love. I cried happy tears, grateful beyond measure to be there. Then came the reception. I'd planned to stay in the background, to avoid causing a scene on Marcus's special day. But as I watched the celebration unfold, I realized that healing sometimes requires confrontation, not for revenge, but for truth. I walked across the reception hall toward where Robert and Catherine stood by the bar, talking quietly. My heels clicked on the polished floor. One by one, people turned to look at me. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through tall grass. Catherine saw me first. Her champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. The sound echoed through the hall, and everyone fell silent. She stared at me as if seeing a ghost, her face draining of all color. "Dorothy," she whispered. Robert turned, and I watched the blood drain from his face too. He reached for a chair to steady himself. I stood before them, very much alive, and smiled gently. "Hello, Catherine." "Hello, Robert." Catherine's scream did silence the entire hall. It was a sound of pure shock, of guilt given voice, of every suppressed emotion, from the past 2 years erupting at once. "You're dead," she gasped. "We buried you." "We? How?" "You buried an empty coffin," I said calmly. "I never died, Catherine. I survived." Robert's legs seemed to give out, and he sank into a chair, his face in his hands. "Oh my God," he kept repeating. "Oh my God." The entire wedding reception was watching now, but I kept my voice low and steady. This wasn't about public humiliation. It was about truth. "I wanted you to know what it feels like," I said. "To lose someone you betrayed. To live with that guilt. To bury the consequences of your choices." Catherine was sobbing now, her perfectly applied makeup running in dark streams down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she choked out. "Dorothy, I'm so sorry. Every day I've thought about you. Every single day." "I know," I said. "And I meant it." I could see the toll their guilt had taken. They'd punished themselves far more than I ever could have. Robert finally looked up at me, his eyes filled with tears. "How?" he asked. "How did you survive?" "The cancer went into remission," I explained. "Something the doctors called miraculous. Maybe it was. Maybe fighting to stay alive gave me a strength I didn't know I had. Maybe the universe wasn't done with me yet." I paused, letting them absorb this. "I chose to let you think I died because I needed freedom from who I was when I was with you. I needed to let go of the betrayal, the hurt, the anger. I needed to heal." "And did you?" Catherine whispered. "Did you heal?" I looked at her, this woman who had once been my closest friend, who had shared so much of my life, who had then broken my heart so completely. "Yes," I said. "I did." I turned to address the whole room then, because this moment belonged not just to Robert and Catherine, but to everyone there. "This is my son's wedding day," I announced. "A celebration of love and commitment. A reminder that true love is built on honesty, loyalty, and respect. Let's not let my past overshadow his future, please. Let's celebrate Marcus and Jennifer." The room remained frozen for a moment longer. Then Marcus himself started clapping. Patricia joined him. Soon, the entire room erupted in applause, not for the drama, but for the grace of moving forward. The music started again. People returned to their conversations, though everyone kept glancing my way. Marcus came over and hugged me tightly. "Thank you for being here, Mom," he whispered. "For being alive. Thank you for letting me come back," I said. Robert and Catherine left the reception shortly after, unable to bear the weight of facing me. I understood. Some truths are too heavy to carry in public. But 3 days later, Catherine came to my sister's house where I was staying. She stood on the porch, looking small and fragile, and asked if we could talk. I invited her in. We sat across from each other at Ruth's kitchen table, 2 women who had once been closer than sisters, now separated by an ocean of hurt. "I don't expect your forgiveness," Catherine began. "I don't deserve it." What I did to you was unforgivable. I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way. Yes, I agreed. You did. She flinched at my honesty but nodded. I've thought about you every single day since we thought you died. The guilt has eaten me alive. My marriage to Robert is miserable because we both know it was built on hurting you. Then why stay in it? I asked. Because leaving feels like running away from what we did, she said. Like we'd be escaping the consequences. I considered this. You know what I learned from cancer, Catherine? I learned that life is too short to spend it in penance. Yes, you hurt me terribly. Yes, what you did was wrong. But spending the rest of your life being miserable doesn't fix anything. It doesn't undo the past, and it doesn't help anyone. We talked for hours that afternoon. I told her about my journey through cancer, about the fear and pain and eventual acceptance. I told her about choosing to disappear, about finding peace in Arizona, about learning to forgive not for her sake, but for mine. She told me about the guilt that woke her every morning, about the hollow feeling in her chest that never went away, about how success in her career felt meaningless when she'd failed so completely as a friend. The Dorothy I was when I was married to Robert, I said finally. She died even if I didn't. The cancer burned away everything that wasn't essential. I don't recognize that woman anymore, the one who defined herself through her husband, who needed her best friend's approval, who was afraid of being alone. Who are you now? Catherine asked. I'm someone who survived, I said. Someone who knows her own strength. Someone who understands that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not others. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. Does that mean? Yes, I said. I forgive you, Catherine. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. We didn't become friends again. Some things, once broken, can't be fully repaired. But we found a kind of peaceful closure. Catherine and Robert divorced 6 months later, both finally releasing each other from the prison of their guilt. Catherine moved to Oregon and opened a small bookstore. Robert remarried a few years later, this time to a kind woman he met in a grief support group. From what I hear, they're happy. As for me, I stayed in Arizona for another year before returning home. I volunteer at a cancer support center now, helping others navigate the journey I survived. I've made new friends, discovered new passions, and learned to fill my life with joy rather than bitterness. My children visit often, and now I have 3 grandchildren who call me Grandma. They know nothing of the drama that came before them, only that their grandmother is someone who faced death and chose life. People often ask me if I regret the way I handled things. Walking into that wedding, letting Robert and Catherine believe I was dead, forcing them to confront their guilt so publicly. I don't. Sometimes the only way to reveal truth is to let people face the consequences of their actions. Robert and Catherine needed to feel the weight of what they'd done. The empty coffin they buried was never about me, it was about forcing them to bury their illusions about themselves. And as for me, I got something far more valuable than revenge. I got my life back. Not the life I had before, built on others' expectations and false securities, but a real life, authentic and hard-won, built on the foundation of my own strength and resilience. Last year, I went to visit my grave, the empty plot where Robert and Catherine had buried that coffin. The headstone they'd chosen was simple but nice. Dorothy Hayes, beloved mother, gone too soon. I stood there for a long time, looking at my own tombstone, and felt an unexpected surge of gratitude. That Dorothy, the one who'd been betrayed and broken, really had died. What emerged from that darkness was someone stronger, wiser, and more alive than ever. I placed flowers on the grave, a small tribute to who I used to be, and walked away with my head high, because here's what I learned through all of this. Betrayal can break your heart, but it doesn't have to break your spirit. Cancer can attack your body, but it doesn't have to defeat your will. And sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't making others suffer, it's refusing to let their actions define the rest of your life. I'm 72 years old now. I've been given the gift of years I wasn't supposed to have. And I've chosen to fill them not with bitterness or regret, but with love, kindness, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I survived it all. That's my story. The story of how I walked into my own funeral reception live and unbroken and reclaimed my life, and I've never looked back. The end.